Welcome back, everyone. This week, we're going to cover the 2023 Post-Action Report. 2023, a year in review. First things first. Cup of Coffee Capital ended the year up 32.29%. The SPY, my benchmark, ended the year up 26.18%. When I first started writing this, it was going to be a quick synopsis about the trades I put on in 2023. However, it morphed into some sort of meta introspective review of the past year of my life. It started adopting the tone of a letter I was writing to myself, and I suspect it will be a letter I look back on one day to offer perspective. So with that out of the way, let's get into this. I've never really celebrated success or milestones in my life. But shouldn't I treat and love myself like I was someone I cared for? I started 2023 with 0 subscribers and $0 invested. I ended the year with 131 YouTube subscribers, 6 Substack subscribers, and $2,758.91 with a return of 32.29%. I most certainly would celebrate this sort of victory for someone else. What makes this more impressive is all the discouragement people have freely shared with me. Some of these people are people I care about, but perhaps should care less about. It's more a reflection on them than it is me, and I'm glad I know that. Their words have less to do with genuine concern for my well-being and more to do with their own BS. It's more an admission of their cope and fallacy, insecurities, inadequacies, jealousy, bias, limited beliefs, and lack of understanding. But this isn't about them, so let's move on, figuratively and perhaps literally if needed. Need be. It just sucks. That's all. Taking a moment to psychoanalyze myself and observe how I've treated myself in the past, it would appear that my default behavior is the following. If I do good, that's what was expected, which is also the same as saying that I can never do good enough due to the ill-defined nature of the word good. I could write an entire piece on this in and of itself, but I won't. It's just worth noting and paying attention to. If I do bad, then that's unacceptable. Now, it won't take a genius to see the pickle I'm in. Essentially, I'm in an emotionally abusive and tyrannical relationship with myself. The logical outcome of this is that I chronically condemn myself as a consequence of failures, some which are inevitable and others which aren't my fault, and never celebrating, acknowledging, or appreciating successes due to attributing it to luck and external influence. When I realized this a couple of days ago, I couldn't help but laugh. I'll tell you why. I'm prone to so-called self-talk in a disassociative fashion. I essentially talk to myself as though I'm someone different. This is a form of self-distancing, self-objectification, or metacognition. This is where the funny part happens. I conduct myself with a glaringly obvious bias that I have accused numerous people of in the past and have mostly eliminated from myself when judging others. And that bias is called the fundamental attribution error. And I was clueless of this up until a couple of days ago. For those who don't know, as a side note, fundamental attribution error, let me give it to you in the best way that you can understand, which is an example, which is to say that when someone else succeeds, you blame the externalities, and when they fail, you blame their own personal contribution. But when you fail, you blame the externalities, and when you succeed, you blame your own contributions and success and being a good person. So what I'm talking about here is that when I talk to myself, I never say, good job, you did a good job. Instead of it's good job because you got lucky and the market was up and a rising tide lifts all boats. But any bad I do, whether that's opportunity cost, whether that's not doing something, whether that's doing something I should have done, whether that was doing something out of commission, omission, regardless, I then attribute to my own character and worth and self. So that's how I'm committing fundamental attribution error against myself. Let me continue. What saves me here is how glaringly obvious of a biased and partial representation of reality it is, meaning that is, for all intents and purposes, an ideological narrative, and things spoken from it are propaganda. But now that I know it's also the consequence of me victimizing myself via the fundamental attribution error, I'm even less concerned with it. So to sum up how I feel or believe I feel, the absence of success is failure, but success is always a little bit past whatever I accomplished, which is the same as saying that I'm always failing. Thankfully, what saves me is that I understand such things as cognitive behavioral therapy and dopaminergic incentive reward systems. I think of those matters from a practical, psychological, principled standpoint, but also on a metaphysical and existential level. Process, modification of thoughts, motivation, and rewards are all crucial matters to understand and tenets to adopt if you want to accomplish much in life. We as humans are negatively biased, and I'm no exception. We disproportionately respond to negative things over positive things. I am not exempt from this. But I also believe that things in motion stay in motion. The good traits I have take care of themselves, but I also believe that the bad traits I have take care of themselves too. Thus my focus and fixation on the things I'm not doing well. This results in a lopsided focus on the bad while the good goes ignored and unappreciated. People say that you don't learn from your success but from your losses. I think that's a blatantly stupid thing to say as a consequence of being factually false, as though learning what works doesn't matter. Yet again, though, this is just one of many factually false but sentimentally true statements that humans insist on using, as though somehow learning is only limited to failure. Absurd. But look, I get it. Don't write in trying to explain the unnecessary false binaries that people insist upon adopting in their rhetorical devices and linguistic strategies. Part of my so-called fundamental attribution error and negativity bias is a fail-safe mechanism. My downfall will be the consequence of what I do wrong, not what I do right. My heightened neuroticism, which reveals itself in the above-mentioned symptoms, is the consequence of survival on the most primitive level. Me attributing my wins to luck and my losses to myself is merely a maladaptive coping mechanism meant in identifying false positives of personal error. It's a worthwhile self-defense mechanism run awry. It's an adoption of the motto, I would rather be safe than sorry, with an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure sprinkled in. I'm trying to err on the side of caution. The stock game is a dangerous game that takes many players out on the stretcher. And my heightened perspicacity is a consequence of that ever-looming threat. Just look at my portfolio. Many of these names are not for the faint of heart on top of that. The deck is stacked against me and I need to play my hand the best I can. People get a win under their belt and become grandiose and delusional. This leads to unforced errors as a result of misguided and unfounded false confidence. This overestimation of ability causes them to overplay their hand and overleverage themselves as well as their margin account. And that's for those who are blessed enough to be successful. Most don't even get to that point. Simply put, the good in me will keep doing good and the bad in me will keep doing bad. And it's the underlying decision-making processes that determine both the bad and the good. Therefore, it's in my best interest and my portfolio's best interest to eradicate that bad as quickly as possible. So naturally, that's where my attention falls. The tricky thing about cope, fallacy, and bias is that it isn't obvious to ourselves. So I'm always pestering myself as to where I'm hiding the bias. To sum things up, let me put to use another factually false but sentimentally true statement that I often hear in the financial realm, and is representative of what I've noted above. If you take care of the downside, the upside will take care of itself. Part 2. End of the year window dressing. There is one thing that has been on my mind since it's happened. It could be due to recency bias, but it's also due to the infraction on something that I pride myself on, which is not being result-oriented and being process-oriented. So what happened? At the beginning of December, I wanted to deploy capital into Alloy Producers. I've written an article on this that I have still yet to publish. I bought one name but not the other name. The name I bought, ATI, was a small position. I wanted to more aggressively buy the dip, but didn't. Why? Simply put, going into December, I knew I was cutting it close to beating the S&P. At that time, I had roughly a 5% lead. I'm embarrassed to say that I wasn't factoring in dividends, which is to say that unbeknownst to me, I had only a 3% lead. I wanted to win for the year 2023. What a horrible start to cup of coffee capital it would have been if I underperformed my first year. Therefore, I was solely concerned about minimizing short-term downside, which would happen to me by being exposed to market volatility via my new positions, I was trying to add, as well as having less cash on hand to cushion any downside movement in my portfolio. Yes, this is being short-term result-oriented. I shudder at saying such things, but it was that decision that I am calling window dressing. I will now provide you my best post hoc rationalization for my behavior. I have to invest knowing that I am constrained to my humanness. This means that pure financial considerations are not the only considerations. Non-financial considerations indirectly and ultimately impact your financial outcomes. For example, you need to invest with consideration to your temperament. If you don't blow out of your position at the worst possible time because you took on too much volatility, and that will ultimately lead to poor financial performance. Getting the first win under your belt is crucial, but it must be accompanied with humility and a level head. For the sake of argument, and most importantly brevity, I want to speak only to the skill component of investing. Yes, I know, I'd be a fool not to factor in the critical role of randomness, luck, plays, and how it contributes to the myriad of experiences we all have. But for your reading pleasure, it's best we not caveat every other statement with a randomness disclaimer. Setting a proper psychological precedence is crucial for long-term performance. The reason is simple. Being discouraged too early can lead to a giving up and thus never achieving long-term results. I knew that getting that first win under my belt was important for both me and my audience. A good start matters. Self-confidence and motivation, which can lead to, for a few reasons. Number one, self-confidence and motivation, which can lead to skill development as a consequence of enjoying the activity. Number two, positive reinforcement, which suggests that you're sufficiently competent at even considering pursuing the task any further, as opposed to a nagging doubt, which one could very well have going into an intimidating activity like investing. And since we're confirmation bias creatures, if you thought you sucked and then you did suck, the probability of you dissociating the outcome with your own character is minimal. Number three, it provides motivation and persistence with following through with the task and subsequently developing your abilities. Setting the tone is important. It gives the first impression. Well, we've all been told how important first impressions are. We are quick to judge creatures. It provides a guiding hand that determines how you'll feel for the rest of the evening, or in this case, whether you'll continue investing or not. It's no small matter. A single number on a screen come December 31st can make or break the journey that you are getting ready to get on and have. I cannot overstate the importance of this phenomenon enough. And I knew this starting December out. And this is all before factoring in the implications of how others would see me. And we're quite the social creatures, so even an introvert like myself is concerned with such matters. We're impressionable. How can I act as an inspiration for others to adopt responsibility for their investing futures and to have that courage to outperform the markets and then fall flat on my face the first year? What a faux pas that would have been if I underperformed the markets. You could say that year-to-date performance is arbitrary, but so are a lot of things. Arbitrary doesn't mean it doesn't matter. We can go full degen nihilistic and label practically everything as arbitrary. There's an argument to be made that our very existence in and of itself is arbitrary. The Malthusians want you to feel that way. But I'm not trying to spiral down some existential rabbit hole. If someone stabbed me, I would say that that matters. I don't need some unsuccessful philosophy major or failed economist pontificating from the peanut gallery. What does it even mean to matter? Although I've overtly outlined that a rolling 3-year time frame is how I will gauge my performance, doesn't mean that other time frames don't matter. Let's not kid ourselves. I care about month, quarter, and yearly timelines too. If for any other reason because I'm now in the public eye and the public cares about those things. Year to date is a clear mark for assessing where you're at with things. It's like saying that New Year's resolutions are stupid. They might or might not be, but either way it misses the point. New weeks, months, and years are how people compartmentalize and measure things. Stupid or not, it's a very real phenomenon. And to pretend like it doesn't matter when people clearly act like it matters would be me being stupid, and I'd prefer not to be stupid. And yes, I'm well aware that a good start can lead to a swelled ego and delusional high standards, inevitably resulting in the obliteration of a trading portfolio and unrecoverable psychological damage in the form of learned helplessness. Or it can lead to conspiratorial narratives about how the market is rigged, and so on. We all know the examples of early childhood success phenomenon. I believe my efforts of window dressing were the consequence of not wanting to appear as a loser. It's easier to call someone a loser if they lose, but some plausibility of me not being a loser exists if I manage to outperform the markets. After all, it would be easier to call me a loser due to underperformance than to call me a loser by proxy of luck. Of course, those who still want to hate will say, it's just 1 year, or they'll say, you got lucky. Of course, these are the same morons who would be more than happy to use that same 1 year time frame to prove that I'm a loser. But that's the life of a moron. Chronic contradictions and inconsistencies of behavior. They are the type who will never keep constant their comparisons and control for variables. They'll use the 1 year timeline to say it hasn't been long enough to say that you're a success, but then they'll turn around and say that you're a loser because you underperformed on that same 1 year timeline that allegedly a moment ago was not long enough to prove I was a success. So seemingly 1 year is long enough to know if you're a loser, but not long enough to know if you're a success, which is an interesting statement and doesn't seem obvious to me. Will I do this sort of window dressing again? Not in my second year, but if things are tight ending off my third year, I won't promise that I won't. This is ever so slightly the amount of pressure that money managers are under. There are many reasons why I wish not to be a money manager, and artificially curtailing your performance is one of them. Section 3. There's one more after this. That will actually talk about some thoughts on moves I made in the markets and such. Imposter syndrome. So, there you have it. The necessity to maintain plausible deniability of incompetence and postpone my fate of being revealed as a fraudulent hack is why I window dressed my portfolio. Hold up, that sounds like something I've heard about before. Imposter syndrome. Of course, to say that I have imposter syndrome presupposes that I have enough expertise or time under my belt to be an authority figure. Cup of coffee capital just turned 1 after all. I'm still a baby. But what happens in the following situation? And you might really want to pay attention to this if you're new to investing yourself and aspiring to be successful. This is why I put it in here. Say I'm acting like the person who I want to become. That means I'm currently a credentialist individual. And it would be my own self-awareness of this discontinuity that would be creating such a thought as the one mentioned in the above paragraph, the one of imposter syndrome. It's quite an interesting juxtaposition. My ego, which adopted this role, feels questioned and affronted by the future, which will reveal whether I am who I think I am or if I'm actually someone different. and only time will tell. This is one among many reasons why adopting a mindset of self-improvement, growth, and manifesting the potential constituted in your character is difficult. Fake it until you make it, by definition, means that you are, for some period of time, a fake. Alternatively, by adopting that mentality in a serious fashion, you're already becoming that which you want to make. You're 1 foot in and 1 foot out of your old life and old paradigm. By aspiring to possess qualities that you yet possess is to already possess some of those qualities. We as men must learn that we shape our identities. Men are defined by what they do and achieve, not if they're a nice person. And to think otherwise is a self-sabotaging loser mentality. And to think that we come out of the womb shitting excellence is a gaslighting maneuver put on you to keep you from reaching that excellence. Which technically is not true. It's more of a byproduct of your excellence not being reached because other people want to commiserate with you and give you plausible deniability for failing, so then that way you give them the same. But that's an article upon itself. So let's wrap this up by going full circle to my decision-making process. If you want to be successful, you must first become a success. Meaning that success requires a transformation at the individual level. It implies that to attain success in any area of life, one must embody the qualities, mindset, and behaviors associated with success. Success is an outcome and a result, and we're better to derive success than from a successful person. The statement emphasizes the importance of personal growth, self-improvement, and taking proactive steps to develop the skills, knowledge, and traits necessary for success. It suggests that success is not solely an external outcome or result, but rather an internal state of being. To become a success means embracing the attitudes, habits, and mindset of successful individuals. It involves cultivating qualities such as determination, resilience, discipline, self-motivation, continuous learning, and the ability to adapt to challenges. It also involves setting goals, taking action, and consistently striving for excellence in one's chosen endeavors. By becoming a success internally, individuals increase their chance of achieving success externally. The internal transformation shapes their actions, decisions, and overall approach to life, leading to outcomes aligned with their aspirations. Ultimately, the quote highlights the idea that success is not a passive result, but an active pursuit that requires personal growth, dedication, and the willingness to invest in oneself. As the late, great Charlie Munger put it, the best way to get what you want in life is to deserve what you want. How could it be otherwise? The world is not crazy enough to look for a lot of undeserving people to reward. I say all of this not for myself, but for all of those who are out in the arena trying things. Not for the half-hearted inevitable failures, but for those who are serious about their dopaminergic incentive reward pursuits. For those actually trying to ascend up the hierarchy and make a dent in the universe. If I fail, that doesn't mean that it's not true. It means just that I failed. As you can tell, I'm fixated on failure because I don't want to visit that state of being. As a side note, if you kind of like that whole, if you want to be successful, you must first become a success. I didn't think about it while writing this, but Earl Nightingale, kind of, while reading that, I kind of thought of him, and he's really good. How to be successful, how to pursue your dreams, stuff like that. Kind of an old-timey, back-in-the-day figure, but there's some excellent listen-tos on YouTube if you're unfamiliar with him. Earl Nightingale is his name. Okay, here we go. In regards to my portfolio. I feel like I did pretty well. I bought names I had conviction in. More specifically, I bought stocks in themes that I had conviction in. The courage of my conviction helped me hold through drawdowns and volatility. I did an awesome job at buying the dip. Almost too good of a job. meaning that perhaps there was quite the degree of luck involved, but I did it a lot, so who knows. I executed on my plans. I started talking around in May or June, I think it might have been actually April or May, how I was going to start stacking cash for the next few months because I thought there would be a pullback in September or October. Was I psychic? Perhaps. But either way, sure enough, there was, and I deployed my capital as I said I would. I just deployed 2 to 3 weeks early, but hey, not too shabby. I feared that it was going to be a shallow pullback and that I wouldn't want to deploy into that and wait for a more severe pullback, thus missing my opportunity. And I was right. It was a shallow pullback, but I stuck to what I said I was going to do, and I'm proud of that. Yes, I'm considering a 10% S&P correction to be shallow. I traded a lot around stupid positions to clip single-digit percentage gains. I'm fairly confident that I lost more money doing that than I made. I'd actually bet on it. But that's the cost of being an imperfect being who wants to degenerately gamble at times. As they say, idle hands make the devil's workshop. I knew I was doing it so that way I wasn't tempted to touch my core positions. I'm unapologetic about that. Metaphorically, I spent $1 to save me $5 because I'm sure I would have butchered the trades if I touched my core positions. Core positions aren't to be touched except to add to and inevitably sell out of and redeploy the capital elsewhere. However, I radically reduced my trading in the last quarter. A lot of people trade because they're bored. Fine, trade away. Just do it with a negligently small portion of your portfolio. But that's not what many people do. They size up stupid positions and get blown out of them, but not until a serious loss occurs due to them being stubborn. They tell themselves the classic line of, "I'll get out when I get back to break even." Well, break even, if it ever does happen, will be a whipsawing, circuitous route you wish you didn't take. Sometimes, not much is going on in the markets that you have much conviction on, or you're trying to revenge trade because your core positions are down. Staring at the screens and scrolling through Twitter will only play with your emotions and cause me to overtrade. The funny thing is that the last trade I wanted to do was on Zim. Had I done that, I'd be up roughly 89% on it as of me writing this, which is accurate because I updated that figure. When I first started writing this, it was up 50%. Now it's up 89%. So what a trade that would have been. But here we are. That's the consequence of window dressing, people. And that would have most definitely made my trading worthwhile for the year. The reason I didn't do it was for the above mentioned window dressing motivation. But so be it. It is what it is. The reason for the excessive trading in Q2 and Q3 was the result of a high cash position I was in. At one point, it was close to 30%. I knew that my portfolio would underperform in the short term with that sort of cash. Therefore, I was trying to juice short-term returns via short-term viable trades. I just wasn't willing to stomach any serious drawdowns, so I got stopped out of some of those trades. Had I held them as actual longer-term positions, the majority of them would have worked out well. But as I said, so be it. It is what it is. I wasn't about to take potentially serious losses on the cash hoard that I spent so long building. Months worth. I did tell myself I'm really happy with myself. Like I've insinuated in this article, I'm working on not being such a tight ass emotionally towards myself. I went into December as quite the nail biter. I knew all my months of effort were going to come down to the final month. I was only leading the S&P with a 5 percentage point spread, which I knew could easily be erased. The S&P could have gone up 10% while I only went up 4%. Or I could lose 3% while the S&P gained 3%. However, when it was all said and done, I won. I'm happy for that, but I am not sufficiently deluded to not think that in another counterfactual universe, things could have played out differently. A sigh of relief was had, but only to be followed by another gasp of air, knowing all too well that 2024 doesn't necessarily play out the same as 2023. Simply put, I'm both happy with my efforts and decisions as well as the results that were achieved. There's no guarantee that good decisions lead to good outcomes, but I don't know of a better alternative strategy. It's the best bet I can make. Onwards and upwards into 2024. Cheers. So that finishes that section. On to that's the wrong screen. On to portfolio review. Pretty much everything's the same except one massive change. I bought a pot stock. So I entered into, and trust me, there's going to be a lot of words to talk about this, so I'm not even going to touch it, really, very briefly. So, first thing I'd like to say is, uranium. When was the last high in URNM? Not the physical Sprout Physical Trust, but URNM. The high was in September. Like, after a while, it just gets irritating sometimes. The underlying fundamental thesis seems to be working. Physicals the spot market's at 92. I told myself that I'd sell at least half my position when it hit 100. And, I don't know if I really have anywhere better to deploy the capital, but sometimes it's best to take profits. I'm up 35%. I mean, it's been an irritating trade. It really has been. I mean, 35% in a year is fine. When you're benchmarked at 26.18 and you're up 35 on it, and it's just like, it moves, then it consolidates for 6 to 18 months, and then it moves, and then it consolidates for 6 to 18 months, and it's just like, Jesus, man. I guess I don't want to bemoan that point too emotionally, but it's irritating. I am trying to stack up cash, which would be easier if I stopped spending it. I'm at 7% cash. I was up to 10%. The Green Thumb Industries, GTBIF, is what I bought. I was actually, I will say this. Back in, January, let's call it, 2023, I started looking at these cannabis companies. And back then, I had TD Ameritrade as my broker. And I was going to buy Green Thumb, GTI, and I was only going to do like a $50 position. Now remember, back then, I was contributing $42 a week. I'm now currently contributing $50 a week. That's really the game plan. I mean, I can't contribute $100 a week and call the channel Cup of Coffee Capital, can I? That's, what kind of coffee are you buying? And so, is what it is. And the thing is so by the end of February, I was going to buy it. So somewhere in there, between the end of January, end of February, I was going to buy it. And just let's say by the end of February, call it $50 a week. That's 8 weeks. That's $400 in my account. At that point, it would have been, honestly, it was less, but let's just simple, easy numbers. I was going to have a little starter position I was going to put on, $50. So that's still, 12.5% of my portfolio it would have been. So not a small position, but I knew cash contributions, cash flows would dilute that percentage of my portfolio. So even if I got it horribly wrong, that's fine because it was early on into the portfolio construction. So whatever. So I was going to make it 12.5% of my portfolio, spend $50 worth. Well, TD Ameritrade wanted to charge me $8 to get into the trade since it was OTC, over the counter. And then they were going to charge me $8 to get out of the trade. So collectively, they were going to charge me $16. $16 on a $50 position is the same as saying that if the stock would have to go up 32% for me to break even. And that did not sit well with my psyche, because people who buy the cannabis companies are always talking about rocket ship emojis and to the moons. So you could be like, well, what's 32% on the way to 500%? And fair enough, but I don't think like that, and I don't talk like that, I hope. So I just didn't like that idea of immediately being, essentially immediately being down 32% on the position. And so I didn't buy it. Well, Fidelity doesn't charge that OTC fee. So I with Cannabis Company, I've been revisiting them. The whole idiocy occurred in 2018, and I looked at it and I'm like, this is stupid, and I ignored it. And then I think I revisited it in 2019. I was like, this is like, no, I'm not, no. And there's all kinds of reasons. Like I said, I'm going to put a lot of words to this topic, and probably upset a lot of people too. And then 2020 came along, and these things kind of ripped again. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. This is just stupid. And then, so, each year, I mean, you get the point. And then I revisited it in 2022. And then I looked at it, and I was like, this actually looks interesting. I wouldn't mind taking a stab at this. And so I was going to. But like I said, I wasn't interested in immediately being down 30% roughly on a position. So I didn't. And then I revisited here in the past few weeks. And well, so I bought. And I mean, I got to be careful saying too much, because as you all might know, I can go on and on. So with that said, revisited it again. Liked what I seen to some extent. Took a stab at it, see what happens. And that's all I'll say on that topic. So let's see. Tidewater, where is it? Tidewater has it ran really hard. A lot of names ran really hard at the end of December, and it's given back 10 or 12% from the most recent peak. Actually, I believe it went to an all-time high, and then subsequently is retracing that. Then Kodiak Gas Services, I'm up 20% on. I was concerned with the IPO unlock, not the IPO unlock, I mean the unlock from the IPO, and seemingly that did not push the price down. And actually, I'm up 20% on the position, which honestly kind of didn't think that was going to happen this quickly. And then, that's how it goes. Here I am in Leonardo, ticker symbol DRS, down 2%. Like, what the hell? And then KGS is up 20%. And if anything, I would have said that would have been the opposite, but that is what it is. Franco-Nevada started picking up a little steam, but then it's just not doing the best. And, underwater on Transocean, isn't that funny play on words? So Triple Flag, I'm just whatever. I mean, Kinross Gold is doing well. It's kind of irritating seeing the same. Kind of makes me want to cuss. Just 30%. Like, can I not get a 50% position? You can say, wow, that's kind of greedy. I've been around for 1 year. Cup of coffee capital just turned 1, and like, well, having 4 names up 30% in 1 year, like 30% a year, it's not that bad. But the names I'm playing with are volatile names. These things could fall 30% in a month, so 1 year to go up 30% to in 1 month fall 30%, like, yeah. Anyway, here we are. That's that. Thank you for watching, and until next time.